Hello everybody, Maven here, and today we are going to be going over ways on how to really abuse the infinite ammo exploit. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys already know about this setup. A lot of other content creators have gone over it before. If you do not know, I'll explain it here briefly. So there is actually a combination of armor mods that allows you and your fire team to have infinite special ammo. And the way you do that is that on your class item, you run 2 copies of Empowered Finish, and then you have 1 copy as Special Finisher. Now, Special Finisher, when you finish an enemy, it's going to grant special ammo for the full fire team, but it consumes 3 stacks of armor charge. So Empowered Finish says that finishers grant you 1 armor charge if you have none. So 2 together will grant you 2 stacks of armor charge. And then when you pair that with a copy of stacks on your boots, it says picking up an orb of power grants you 1 additional stack of armor charge. That is going to work with the Empowered Finish to give you 3 stacks of armor charge. And that will give you enough to proc Special Finisher and make special ammo on every finisher that you do. Now, the reason that this may be considered a bug is because it says picking up an orb of power grants you an additional stack of armor charge. Empowered Finisher has nothing to do with orbs of power, so this may or may not be unintended by Bungie. So just in case, exploit it while you can. So in this video, we'll be going over the best weapons and the best builds to really take advantage of the fact that you have infinite special ammo. So let's get to it. Don't forget to drop a like, and I hope you enjoy. Now, we first must think to ourselves, if we're going to be up in the face of the enemy, slaying out super hard with a special weapon and being ready to perform finishers amidst all the danger, especially in higher level content, our top priority is going to be survival. That's really going to revolve around our builds today. Now, another thing I got to use to preface this is that I highly recommend using a tracer rifle for this infinite special, double special setup, because in the heavy slot, you're going to want to use something heavy hitting, you know, like a linear fusion or a Gallarhorn or like a legendary solar rocket or something like that. And, you know, in a way, it's also kind of an infinite heavy build because when you're using double special weapons, you spawn a lot more heavy bricks and vice versa. You get heavy kills, you spawn more special bricks. So you're going to want to go with double special. But then when you're running something like a shotgun or a wither horde or something, it's going to be hard to perform a finisher with that. So if you want something that resembles a primary that allows you to get a target weak so that you can finish them, a trace rifle is going to be ideal. Now, it would be very appealing to use something, you know, like a fusion rifle, like a Cartesian coordinate or an Ikelos shotgun. You know, that's great. That's great. It's cool. But if you do that, you're going to need to run a kinetic primary or vice versa, you know, an energy primary if you're using something that is a special in the top slot. Now, a very good fusion rifle for this, which I do not have yet, is the Crafted Royal Executioner, because you can get incandescent on it, and that's going to be very important for when we talk about the build breakdown later in the video. And the next thing I got to preface this video with is the reason why we are on Warlock. So I was looking through all of the exotics on all 3 classes to figure out what I wanted to pair with infinite special ammo. So when it comes to Hunter, really nothing stood out for doing a mono finishers infinite special build other than the Assassin's Cowl, because finishers will make you invisible. But you know what also makes you invisible? If you go on over to Void here and look at your fragments, there is Echo of Obscurity. Finisher final blows make you invisible, so you can have that option on any class. And then when it comes to Titan, what really stood out to me was the Path of Burning Steps boots, because solar ability or weapon final blows will grant you stacks of Firewalker. Every like 2 or 3 kills, you get a stack of Firewalker, and at times 4 stacks, you get a 40% solar weapon damage buff. And that's going to be really good with a special solar weapon. If you're slaying out super hard with infinite special, that's going to be amazing. However, they aren't super user-friendly. You kind of got to jump through hoops. You tend to lose a Firewalker buff a lot, and I felt like it wasn't super worth it. Now, before we talk about the potential Warlock exotics to stand out here, we first need to go over the weapons that potentially stand out. So for the kinetic slot, obviously, the big obvious thing that stands out to have infinite special for is the new raid exotic the conditional finality from the Root of Nightmares. Obviously, I do not have this yet. However, I did just complete my flawless run. So next week at reset, when I do a clear, I should be getting this. And this is going to be nutty to use with infinite special ammo. However, besides that, things that stand out, something like the Forerunner, actually this thing does some pretty heavy damage if you're hitting precision hits with it. And it's not bad to still be able to do finishers with if you hit body shots. So if you're a fan of the Forerunner, it's not a bad option. And having infinite special means you can use the Rock ability more. The one that lets you consume part of your ammo and throw those halo nades. You can actually do that if you have infinite special. And another thing that stands out here is going to be the Izanagi's Burden. So if you're doing tough content that has a lot of champions or has a lot of beefy majors, you can just use the Izanagi pretty much on anything that's not a red bar. And you can just go ahead and finish the red bars, finish the champions with Aeons on, and you can get tons of Izzy ammo and be able to spam it everywhere. So that's a good option for tougher content. And the final thing in the kinetic slot that stands out to me is going to be the Aegir's Scepter. The Aegir's Scepter is an absolute monster for ad clear, being able to freeze everything around when you get final blows with it. So that brings us to our first build of the day, and that is going to be Stasis with the Mantle of Battle Harmony. Because your weapon final blows, if the weapon matches your subclass, you get additional super energy. So we have very high intellect here at tier 8, paired with the Whisper of Bonds. So that's going to make it so defeating frozen targets grants you super energy. And the Aegir's Scepter freezes everything. Just pretty much everything on the battlefield gets frozen. On top of that, you got Dusk-filled grenades. And if you wanted to run Bleak Watcher turrets, you can do that. But I feel like the Aegir's Scepter with the Ice Flare bolts is enough to keep everything frozen. At least if you're not doing Grandmaster content, you can run this setup. But obviously, if you're doing GMs, you got to run the Bleak Watcher turrets. But with the Mantle of Battle Harmony and high intellect, you get your super very quick, and that allows you to activate the catalyst, the Will Given Form. So when you have your super full and you hold your reload button, it turns the Aegir's Scepter into the Will Given Form, which consumes your super energy and turns it into like a supercharged laser. And this thing actually does some really good DPS. And I'll show you a damage comparison against Carl, first starting off with the Hothead Adept with impact casing and Adept big ones, and let's see how many rockets it takes to kill him. And now we're going to activate the Will Given Form on our Scepter and see how fast we can melt him. So as you can see, the Aegir's Scepter melts pretty well, but first things first, we have to compare that against our actual super to see if it's even worth popping the Will Given Form. So yeah, after that, I would say it is more worth it to actually just pop your Aegir's Scepter catalyst rather than actually just popping your super, because you can also deactivate the Will Given Form and conserve some of your super energy for later, and you can get your super back really quickly to activate it again. And also, not to mention, when you have your Will Given Form active, you periodically freeze enemies while you're damaging them. When you're slaying out with this and just freezing all the targets in the area, you get so much super energy back because of the Whisper of Bonds, especially paired with the additional super energy you get from the Mantle of Battle Harmony. And not to mention, the Mantle of Battle Harmony also buffs your damage straight up with your weapon because of absorption cells. Takedowns that match your subclass type also buff your damage when your super is full. So your Aegir's Scepter is just straight up going to be stronger when you have your super ready. So here's my mod setup for this build if you were interested in playing it, but there's also something that I got to mention about Grenade Kickstart here. So it consumes your armor charge, and the reason that I have this on here is just a safety measure, because remember, Empowered Finish will only grant you armor charge when you have none, and you have to consume 3 for a special finisher to work. So if you accidentally run over somebody else's orb and it grants you armor charge when you don't want it, you can just throw your grenade to fully consume your armor charge stacks. So when you go in for that finisher, it's going to put you up to 3 armor charge stacks with the little combo here, so that your next finisher, you're ready to start generating special, because random orbs can potentially screw you up. And that is the main reason why we don't have any siphon mods or anything like that. And that is also a reason why we don't have any surge mods on our boots, is because it starts draining our armor charge stacks. So if we have 2 or 1 stacks of armor charge, it's going to screw up our combo. So just keep that in mind when you go for finishers. You want to have either 3 armor charge stacks or 0. Now back on over to collections here, let's finally get to the energy slot. Now where to even begin with the energy slot? There's so many cool options. A couple that stand out, you know, Telesto's a great ad clear option. Wave Splitter is cool if you're on Gear, Falcon's Hunter, because it's so easy to make orbs of power right now and charge that battery. Divinity's cool if you're a team player. Jotun scorches a lot on hit. So if you're pairing it with the Dawn Chorus exotic Warlock helmet that gives you additional scorch, pair that with the Ember of Ashes fragment, and you can actually cause a surprising amount of solar ignitions. And then there's a Lord of Wolves, which is actually pretty bad. Don't use it. There's if you like sniping, there's things like the Lorenz and the Cloud Strike. Ruinous Effigy if you like to dunk on fools. Duality is surprisingly good, and I'll actually show some gameplay examples of this. Now, when people see the Duality shotgun, they really think of it for PvP, but they forget that it has the On Black Wings perk, which is actually really good in PvE. Pellet Final Blows will grant a stacking precision damage and reload buff, and I think it goes up to 5 stacks, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'll show some gameplay footage of how much damage this actually does. It is pretty ridiculous. So going up against Carl here with as much On Black Wing stacks as I could get, as you can see, we absolutely just vaporize him. He just ceases to exist. It does so much damage. You remember how much damage we did with the rocket launcher? Yeah, it is no comparison. This thing does way more burst damage than a rocket does. Even a God Roll Hothead. So personally, I really like this thing, and on my own time, I'm probably going to be using it for fun. And you also got to remember that since this is a very unique shotgun, it has a different reload animation than all other shotguns. It actually reloads a clip. So you don't have to reload each individual pellet like every other shotgun in the game. It actually reloads it all at once, and very fast at that. So it's very unique, and it's the most efficient shotgun in the game. Back to the collections tab here, the next thing to talk about is going to be the Delicate Tomb. Now, when people see the Delicate Tomb, there is always one exotic armor piece that comes to mind. That is on the Warlock, and that is going to be the Fallen Sunstar, because these two things synergize so well. They're like 2 peas in a pod. They were meant for each other. And that brings us to our second build of the day. Now, like I said before, when you are using a special weapon that you're intending to have infinite ammo with that manages to kill things when it tends to hit them, you're gonna have to pair that with a primary, unfortunately. So with this build, I'm using the Fatebringer Time Loss with Explosive Payload and Adrenaline Junkie, Blared Magwell Reload Masterwork with Hammer Forged Rifling. That is my primary choice here so that I can get things weak and perform finishers on them. Now this build generates a stupidly ridiculous amount of ability energy, more than every other build in the game, and we'll go over one by one on why that is. So the Fallen Sunstar, you get additional ability energy from Ionic Traces, and they travel to you quicker. So then the Delicate Tomb why it pairs so well with this is because it also works with Ionic Traces. You collect an Ionic Trace, your next shot with this thing is going to jolt targets, and also Final Blows itself with this weapon have a chance to generate Ionic Traces. Not only that, but Spark of whatever it's called here, Spark of Discharge, Arc Weapon Final Blows have a chance to generate an Ionic Trace, so that's like double the chance to generate an Ionic Trace. So then on top of that, we have Spark of Ions. This is defeating a jolted target creates an Ionic Trace. Pair that with Electrostatic Mine, defeating a jolted target creates an Ionic Trace. So double the chance where defeating jolted targets creates Ionic Traces. So the Delicate Tomb itself jolts targets with its ability, but on top of that we have Spark of Shock, so our grenade will jolt targets, our melee jolts targets, everything we do jolts targets, everything we do generates multiple Ionic Traces, and we just have a stupidly infinite amount of ability spam. And I'll show some background gameplay of going through a Lost Sector on Nessus where I literally rarely have to shoot my fusion rifle. I can just spam abilities non-stop. And no matter how hard I try to find opportunities to spam my fusion rifle, I just constantly have my abilities. My abilities are everlasting. I have a constant Arc Soul, and because we're amplified all the time because of Electrostatic Mine, our Arc Soul is always sentient, and Arc Soul's also got a big buff and they're really strong. We got Spark of Resistance, so we're more bulky. And I did say the key to a PvE build is to have great survivability, but in the terms of this arc build, it's kind of like the mindset of the best defense is a good offense, and this is a very, very offensive build. And just from the fact that we have infinite delicate tomb ammo, because if we're ever to run out, all we have to do is tap something with our hand cannon and finish it for free ammo. And we have Arc Scavenger on as well. It's just going to be infinite uptime of Delicate Tomb. We even have our Adept Hothead for some boss damage, so it's like multi-purpose. This is just a very strong build. Now here is a breakdown of our mod setup. We got the combo on our class item and boots. We got Ashes to Assets on our helmet with 2 ammo finders. We have Arc Scavenger and Reserves to synergize with our Delicate Tomb and our Hothead. And we have Recuperation, which picking up an orb grants health. So we don't have any ways to make orbs, but we can pick up our teammates' orbs because this is our only form of health regen. This build has no other form of health regen, but we do have 100 resilience, so we're a little tankier, along with Spark of Resistance and 2 resist mods on our chest. Now for our gloves, we have Momentum Transfer, Impact Induction, and Bolstering Detonation to continue the chain of ability spam. And now the reason that we do not have Grenade Kickstart or Melee Kickstart to break the curse of having 2 armor charge stacks accidentally preventing our finishers is because this build is spamming so many abilities non-stop that it's just going to be constantly consuming our 3 stacks of armor charge that we need for our finishers, so I felt it wasn't really worth running. So if we happen to accidentally pick up a stray orb, we're just gonna go have to find another stray orb to break the curse so we can get our finishers back online. Now we have one more build to talk about today, and now I would really love to do Void and take advantage of Echo of Obscurity, but I haven't really fully messed around with this yet, and I have an idea of it in mind for a future video using a weapon that I currently do not have the god roll of. So I'll make a follow-up video in the future. However, taking a look at the rest of our potential Warlock exotics here, what is going to stand out here? Well, something that stood out is going to be the Verity's Brow, because if we're slaying out with a special weapon that matches our subclass, we're going to get death throws and get boosted grenade damage and boosted grenade energy. And that'd be great for the solar healing nade thing that I talked about earlier, so we can spam healing nades more often. However, I felt the better option was just going to be the Mantle of Battle Harmony again, but this time on solar, taking advantage of the combo I talked about, because Touch of Flame gives you restoration ×2 with your healing nade, which is stronger healing than the Loreley Splendor Helm on Titan that you can keep up forever with the Ember of Empyrean by getting solar weapon or ability final blows. So this is going to be a very strong combo. And this is the setup that I have found to work the best with this, using the Prometheus lens that just got a massive buff this season. So the Prometheus lens now applies Scorch on hit, and they gave the catalyst incandescent, so it scorches even more. And the reason why we want to scorch like crazy is because of Ember of Searing. Defeating a scorched target creates a fire sprite. And the fire sprite is so important because not only does it give us our melee energy, which is going to proc our impact induction on our gloves to give us our healing nades back, but it also procs one of our artifact mods this season, which is called Solar Surge. Collecting a fire sprite gives you armor charge. It doesn't say it gives you 1 armor charge, it gives you 2 armor charge. Pair that with the stacks on stacks, and that is straight up going to give you 3 stacks of armor charge, which is what you need to get your finisher combo going without ever needing to do an initial finisher. To get those 3 stacks of armor charge, all you gotta do, scorch your target, pick up that fire sprite, and that is super easy to do with the Prometheus lens. And like I said, running a trace rifle is ideal for this build because it allows you to prime targets to finish them while also being able to slay out super hard because of incandescent and synergizing with Solar 3.0. And then on top of that, you can pair that with a heritage with recombination with Major Spec so that you can hit targets really hard when you run into something fatter. And then you can just have a rocket for some heavy burst damage. So this is like a very good setup. I messed around for hours trying to find a better setup than this, but this one just seemed to work the best. It was so consistent. It covered every ground and did everything I needed it to do. And another very beautiful thing about the Prometheus lens is that it is the only weapon in the game, correct me if I'm wrong, that has an inventory stat size of 100, making it the second most ammo efficient weapon in the game. right below the Hollow Denial. So when you have Solar Scavenger on your boots, that does all you really need to have a ton of Prometheus Lens ammo, so you never run out after doing just like 1 or 2 finishers, and allows you to still have a lot of ammo for your heritage. So it is a very good combination. And because it has an inventory stat size of 100, that means that running a reserve mod would actually do nothing for it, meaning we're just going to run resistance of all 3 elements on our chest with 100 resilience so that we are bulkier. And as we slay out with our Prometheus Lens, we're constantly keeping that restoration ×2 with Ember of Empyrean and being tankier than a Loreley Splendor Titan. And on top of that, Ember of Empyrean also extends the duration of Radiant on final blows, and we're becoming Radiant via Ember of Torches, so we're also going to have a constant 25% damage buff for our Prometheus Lens, making it even stronger for ad clear. But note that it does not stack with the absorption cells buff from the Mantle of Battle Harmony. So you're going to have to deal with just having a 25% damage buff, which is more than enough. But also keep in mind, if you prefer, you can also instead run the Retrace Path with a copy of Solar Reserves along with the Wither Horde if you prefer that, which is also another good option. And my heavier choice here is the Roar of the Bear with Autoloading Demolitionist. However, another good option is, of course, the Cataclysmic. Now, I want to show you another beautiful thing about this build. Say you go up against a fat boss and you're like, okay, I cannot do enough damage with just my rockets, so what am I going to do? Well, you can simply do this. Throw on Starfire, throw on Retrace Path, throw on Wither Horde, and swap your nade diffusion, and boom, you are ready to go. Since you only swapped your nade, you didn't swap any aspects or fragments or anything, that means you get to keep your super energy and all of your abilities up, except your nade, obviously. So you can go ahead and throw out your well, stick a Wither Horde, and start going to town with fusion nades and doing the thing that Starfire does. And another thing that is just so beautiful about this setup is you can go over to your loadouts and click Save New so that you can have your ad clear build right here, ready to go as normal with the Prometheus Lens. But then if you need to do boss damage, you simply click here. You do not lose your super energy, you do not lose your abilities, and you are just ready to go for some boss damage. So it's very versatile. So this combo may actually be ideal if you main Starfire. You might actually want to main this, and then when it's time to do boss damage, you just click over here and you're ready to go. But during ad clear and during the encounter, you may want to run this instead. I've just found that it's very, very strong for survivability with this little combo here. Plus, having high intellect along with the Mantle of Battle Harmony granting you additional super energy, you can get your super quicker so you can even get that Starfire well online. So here's going to be my mod setup with this build. The combo, of course, we got Solar Scavenger with Innervation, and then we have a couple ammo finders along with a heavy ammo scout to help the teammates. We got triple resists. We have 2 copies of Impact Induction for additional grenade energy when we hit with the Celestial Fire. And then we have the melee kickstart, only the melee kickstart. And the reason why this is safe to use whenever we have our melee up is because the Celestial Fire is gonna scorch targets. When we kill a scorched target, it makes a fire sprite. When we collect that fire sprite, it's gonna give us 3 stacks of armor charge, and that immediately gets our combo back online. So there's no harm at all in expending the melee kickstart. So we really want to keep the grenade energy flowing, and remember, fire sprites generate grenade energy, and that really matters. We want to get that healing grenade back in case we lose our restoration, because it only lasts 12 seconds, and sometimes you're busy killing a fatter enemy, or you are busy doing finishers, and sometimes your restoration will run out. You want to have that grenade back quickly. And we also have Ember of Solace to increase the duration of Radiant and Restoration. So your healing grenade would normally heal you for 4 seconds, but this ups it to 6 seconds, and that makes all the difference. The little bit of extra time that gives you is enough to keep it going with Ember of Empyrean sometimes. It makes all the difference. So this, in my opinion, is going to be the best way to take advantage of the infinite special ammo combo. And also remember, this also gives your teammates infinite special ammo too. So it's very good for that reason as well. It's a team player type of build. So I would say this is the best way, in my opinion, after hours and hours and hours of testing and days of testing. And I would say a close second is going to be the Fallen Sunstar build. It's very aggressive, offensive, up in your face, good for knocking out quick activities and doing extremely aggressive ad clear and running through quickly. But if you're doing more difficult content and the main objective is to survive, I would say go with this solar build with the ×2 restoration. It is very good for surviving and being very consistent with this loadout. And another honorable mention to the Gear Falcon's Hunter. I think this is going to be another excellent way to take advantage of the infinite special ammo. I didn't make a build with this one yet though. So that's going to do it for the builds, and on to the wrap up. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'd like to know your thoughts. If you have a better idea of how to take advantage of infinite special ammo, let me know. I'd love to give it a try. And as always, I will link dim loadouts for these builds in the description and in the pinned comments if you'd like to give them a try. And I am going to only link the Fallen Sunstar build and the Solar Mantle of Battle Harmony build because these are the two that I feel are really worth using. The Stasis one is cool, it's fun, but I don't think it's nearly as strong as the Arc and Solar ones. Anyways, go ahead and have fun with it, and I would highly recommend giving that Solar one a try if you are somebody who mains Starfire. I really think this is the new way to play Starfire. You don't really have to run through activities with the ugly bathrobes on. You can at least have the less ugly bathrobes and have a lot better time ad clearing, and when you get to the boss, you can just abuse that loadout system. We have that new loadout system for a reason, and you can use it to your advantage in this way. I really sincerely believe this is the new way to play it. However, this video is probably not going to get 500,000 views, so not everyone will know. But this is where you come in. If you want to help out and spread the word, share the video with a friend, I would greatly appreciate it. Another way to help out is by simply hitting the like button and dropping a comment, because interacting with those ways really helps out the video and helps the algorithm, gets the video out there into more recommended sections. And if you are new here, consider subscribing. Would love to have you here. Thank you so much for watching, and with that, I will catch you in the next video. Later.